Times coach because life is life in. A lot of people living in fear these days. And so we're going to talk about that. We've been talking about the ACE test this week or the ACE evaluation. Okay, let me pull that up while we're waiting here. Let me pull it up. Okay. Let's go to this one so I don't lose the other one. Let me see. So, no, I need more. I need more. There it is. Adverse Childhood Experience Questionnaire. We've talked about that this week, so we may resort back to that. That's a questionnaire they give in America for, adults who may be struggling with issues, survival issues, and from their childhood. And a lot of people don't realize that your things that you survived in childhood, you don't just get over it like that. I know I thought we did. I thought once I got sober that I was going to know things I didn't know and know things that I never seen modeled in my entire life. And I really didn't even understand and know feelings, because I had numbed myself out so much. So that's why we're talking about emotional maturity and healing childhood trauma this evening. I usually pick a topic. If you're new here, I'm a coach, like I said, a mindset coach, life coach. And I usually pick a topic weekly that we can talk about, that we can discuss and unpack, because a lot of us here are really supportive. Hey, Ramon, what's up with you? It's good to see you here. So is Kim going to be here tonight? Is she going to moderate? I wore something more higher neck to moderate. So anyway, I'm glad that you're here, Ramon. So I've been talking this week about that ACE test. I know that I talked to you about that before, and so we're talking about the ACE test tonight and, the recovery and emotional maturity and healing childhood trauma. She just grabbed her phone. Good deal. Thank y'all. Thank everyone for being here and choosing, to support this algorithm, because a lot of times people can be like scrolling and looking for evidence that the world's coming to an end. Hi, Alessandro Dragoda. Alessandro Goda. Okay, well, I don't know what that means, but thank you for being here, everybody. So we're going to talk about recovery, emotional maturity, and healing childhood trauma tonight. I know Kim's in the house because when I see the hearts go up, I know Kim's here. Thank you, Kim. Do you want to moderate tonight? Maybe they'll be nice. Hello, John London. How are you doing this evening? I hope you're good. We're still carrying this week the recovery. Thank you, darling. Feel free. I think you're in blue, so I think you got this. So we're going to talk further about recovery and emotional maturity and healing childhood trauma this evening. Don't that sound fun? All right. Thank you, Kim, for the hearts. So I hope that y'all like this topic and that you get to learn something about yourself tonight. That I, like me, that's why I share this, is I didn't know this stuff. I got to learn it myself. Jose Ricardo Silva. Well, welcome, Jose Ricardo Silva from Brazil. All right. So tonight we're going to talk about what recovery and emotional maturity actually look like after addiction, childhood trauma, and survival-based living. Because some of us don't even realize we are living tucked in bed 1 a.m., but looking forward to learning more. All right. Thank you, John London from the UK, right? So I'm glad that you're here. And so, yeah. We'll talk more about this. And, then Sunday I'll come on here and do a story time. So we can kind of integrate through that, because a lot of people may not relate. Our ego will naturally say, like, when I read these codependency books, it wasn't like I just said, yay, codependency. I read Codependent No More at first. And when I looked at that book, I was like, oh, no. Yeah, no. Because I did not want to own that stuff, honestly. But after a while, there was no denial, no swimming in the sea of denial. So I had to really get real with myself, because as I tell people, we can't heal our face and our butts at the same time. So anyway, many of us learned early. She's eating her pizza made with carb-free tortilla. All right. See? Very good. Eating healthy. Eating healthy. I love it. So enjoy eating the pizza. And so far, so good on here. So no interruptions having to time anybody out. So we're doing good. So many of us learned early on to protect ourselves emotionally. And what that may look like is some people, Robbie, you're tucked in too. It's 10 a.m. Well, I'm glad you're here, Robbie. So what does that look like when we're, like protecting ourselves emotionally? Some of us became hyper independent. Hyper independent. It's like, I don't need nobody. I can do it myself. Some people became defensive and they don't even realize they're running in defense mode because this is your central nervous system. If you grew up in childhood trauma, your nervous system doesn't just decide to amp down on its own. It doesn't just say, oh, I'm grown. I'm in this grown body. Because we were in grown bodies at 14. And a lot of our childhood trauma may have came to a head at 14. I know at 14, I began a very volatile, violent relationship with my dad. And that doesn't make your central nervous system amp down. And so we begin to have expectations, these expectations and adaptations from experiencing childhood trauma. So when we get grown, we think, oh, I can't wait. I know you got married at 14, girl. We don't even know at 14, but we think we know, right? Because we have adult bodies. And so we think our way, we start learning in the teenage years to start thinking our way and strategizing our way out of things all the time. At least I did. I was strategizing out of trouble all the time. Uh-oh, Mini Jim, why'd you do that? Thank you, Kim, for those hearts. So I got my notes so I can read your comments, okay? But so we became hyper defensive. Some became defensive. And what defensive means is that you're on guard. I don't know. So defensive means you're on guard, and so a lot of people don't realize they're on guard. We're in that flight, fight, and freeze zone, and we don't know. That's your central nervous system, and that is the protective part. If you see a bear, you're about to get hit by a car, it's a very good thing to have that. But some of us who experienced childhood trauma, our breath began not to regulate, because when we get in trouble when we're kids, what do? We go, when we get scared, what do? And so we tend to get more shallow in the breath. And this book here, The Body Keeps the Score, discusses that with PTSD, marrying at 14. I know, I couldn't imagine I know, right? I remember though, I thought I was grown at 14 too. And, my parents got married at 16 and 18. And I can tell you that they just carried their childhood trauma with them because both of them just wanted to get out of the house. They just wanted to get out of their homes because they didn't like their homes. And so we want to think we're grown up, but they were not grown up yet. And then I was born when my mom was 18 and my dad was 20. So there was not any emotional maturity there. I found out I wasn't grown. I know, right? But we do think we're grown at 14. At 14, that's when I started bucking up to my dad because I took on this, I talked on Wednesday morning about the roles that we take on for our survival skills. And I took on the protector too. So I used to buck up against my dad when I was 14 years old, and I'm not proud of that, but, I did. In my mind, I was that man at 14. It was scary looking back on it to think I'm still breathing. I know, right? Because we think we're grown at 14 because our bodies are pretty much matured. We don't realize. My dad used to tell me all the time, girl, you're wet behind the ears, because I would be telling everybody what to do. I was manipulative and I would be telling everybody what they needed to be doing and all of this when I was 14 years old. My dad would always say, girl, you are wet behind the ears. And I didn't think I was, but I was. So some of us became perfectionists, caretakers, performers, people pleasers, rebels, or emotional avoiders. Because what we do is when we get hurt, we build a wall up around ourselves is what we do. And so it's like we pretend I ain't hurt. And what that does is it buries our soul. So then we're like not feeling like we're running fully. We're not living fully because there's so much fear. We would have been a force, Stacy. I did that too, right? Right? Yep. Thanks, Robbie. I know I'm not alone. That's why I get on here is because I know I'm not alone. And a lot of times we are just trying to figure things out all the time. And we have to just figure ourselves out. So that's why I do this. So it's often a defense, that what some of us gathered was protective confidence. And that's that building that wall around ourselves saying, I'm not going to get hurt. I'm not going to get hurt. But see, the thing is we're drawing to us when, people talk about universal law and all that, we're drawing to us hurt because that's the energy that we're creating. And we can't deny that we are all energy. We have the positive and the negative energy. When you get around somebody with negative energy, you're around somebody with negative energy. When you're around somebody with positive energy, you're around somebody with positive energy. We get this protective arrogance, and I'm going to talk about that tonight because I had the protective arrogance because it was fear driven. So, protective arrogance is not true confidence. It's that false confidence that you hear me talk about on here sometimes. So, it can sound like, I already know, I know, I know, I know. When people try to tell you something, I know, I know. Or no one can tell me anything, right? Or I don't need help. I'm fine. You know what we say in recovery? What I'm fine means is I'm effed up, insane, neurotic, and emotionally unstable. That's, because, and I've talked about this on Mondays. I'm talking about now the self esteem alphabet. Kim knows about the self esteem alphabet. The self esteem alphabet is, saying something different because we are programmed. And a lot of people probably want to say, no, I'm not programmed, but we are programmed to say, I'm good, I'm fine because it's acceptable. But we don't stand out. And some of us have learned to play small. So we've talked about that a little this week is that, how can we stand out in another way? Thanks, Robbie. So how can we stand out? Is like saying, this week I told, like Facebook, I think it's like, I'm amazing. That's right. Kim knows I'm amazing. I am beautiful. I'm confident and I'm determined and I'm energetic and I'm efficient and is the man way. Yeah, Ramon. I know. And that's the thing is that a lot of men were taught that they had to fit into a certain role, you know? John London, 100%. I can believe that our brains are still developing until about 30 years old. And a lot of growing in life is when we make mistakes in adolescence. Absolutely. And it's like, I love Einstein. I love this stuff nowadays. Now, when I was younger, I was just like those comments that I just, had read to you all. When I was younger, I was like that. But I had to learn, like Einstein said, it's insanity doing the same thing, expecting different results, thinking that I'm in charge of stuff and that so I had to learn this. So it was protective arrogance. It's 33. Oh, being a man's at 33. Okay. So protective arrogance can be a shield against shame, vulnerability, rejection, or the fear of feeling exposed. Right? So many of us developed this because somewhere along the way it did not feel emotionally safe to be wrong, uncertain, needy, hurt, or teachable. I know I had to learn the language of all of those, that if I needed help, I needed to learn how to ask for help, instead of hinting, because I used to hint. And those were developing unreasonable expectations. When I hinted that I wanted something, I had to learn how to just come out and say, hey, do you mind doing this for me? And not to do it cowering. Because, I used to cower when I wanted somebody to do something for me. It'd be like, would you do that for? Because I already had an expectation that they were going to say no. Right. So a lot of times we learn expectations from a very young age, and then our body, the way that our body language looks is it doesn't look like we're having a real confidence, right? So instead of feeling pain, we learn to protect so we didn't feel rejected. But healing eventually asks more from us because it doesn't feel good, right? We start learning when we get to be adults is this doesn't feel right. We start knowing that there's an intuition and then there's expectation. And when our expectations aren't serving us, and we really want intuition, but a lot of people think their expectations are intuition, but when we really want an invitation, We never stop learning, to be honest, if we're open to it. Exactly. Exactly. I'm still learning. I still amuse myself. And that's the cool thing is that I've learned how to take this adventure and not to be afraid of being exposed, needy, hurt, or teachable. And I'm not afraid to laugh at myself. Here we grow. That's right. That's right, Robbie. Here we grow. So instead of feeling the pain, what do? We learn to protect. But healing eventually asks more from us, right? There's the word healing. A lot of people are like, healing, and a lot of people don't maybe want to work on that healing. They just want things to change, but healing requires us to change. It doesn't require things to change. So recovery is not only removing substances or compulsive behaviors, recovery is learning how to be with ourselves differently, ourselves. Not having those outside expectations of somebody else and not waiting for somebody else to tell us who we are and not waiting, all of this. It's in growing from protective arrogance to teachable humility about asking for what we need. Asking people if we tend to make stories up, which I did in codependency, John London, totally rewriting old patterns. Yes, yes, interrupting patterns and yeah, and neural pathways. That's what I've been talking to people about is interrupting those neural pathways because when stuff is ingrained and imprinted and embedded on you, it's in your neural pathways. And so that's your autonomic chains will be, automatically like, this is what I do. This is what I do. We'll talk more about that. So growing from protective arrogance into teachable humility. Humility is not to be humiliated. It's not that at all. And it's not self-rejection. And it's not making ourselves smaller to make other people bigger and comfortable. Humility is the willingness to remain open, to be open. When somebody asks us a question, not to be defensive. Because I know I used to be defensive. When somebody asked me a question, I felt like I was stupid because I was afraid of being stupid. And so if they asked me a question, I sometimes would be defensive. Anybody here ever? I mean, if we get honest with ourselves, anybody here get defensive? And thankfully, therapy, coaching made me feel safe enough to where when she asked me questions, I understood that it was just really inquisitive. It's not to find problems with me, but I used to think making those stories up in my head the way my central nervous system ran due to, childhood and then my adult choices is that somebody was looking for Kim. Somebody was looking for me to make mistakes. So I was already on guard to be ready for what they said. Yeah. So humility is the willingness to remain open. This remaining open is teachable. Humility is teachable. Arrogance is like, I know, I know, I know. You've come across that too, John London. I know. It's like our false esteem is what it is because we're afraid. When fear is underneath our self-esteem, there's that false esteem that I know I built. So when we're able to remain open, we're able to remain open to listen, to observe, and to be curious instead of immediately defensive. So I had to learn to ask questions and I had to learn how, because I would just, that's why we make stories up is because if we were a child and we were afraid to ask questions, then we made stories up because children are creative and imaginative. But those creativities and imaginations may not be helping us in adulthood. They may be having us come out sideways, twisted, or just silent suffering. Thanks, Kim. So tonight we're talking about learning to pause and use our objective senses differently. See, because those patterns, how they got imprinted was through what you saw, what you smelt, what you tasted, you touched, you heard, and how those things imprinted because you had a reaction typically, or you shut down to it. So anytime you see those familiar patterns, either you feel familiar with it or you want to repel. There's attraction and repulsion when we're talking about energies. And so I used to think my passive aggressiveness was going to cause more control, but what that caused was more repulsion. In control makes us want to have people acting like we want them to act, right? But when we try to control, it's so funny that we actually are pushing people away rather than getting them to do what we want them to do. So we learn to observe this. What am I hearing? What am I seeing? What am I feeling in my body? And what is actually true right now? And am I reacting to the present or to an old wound? Because all those questions there are typically, if we're codependent, or what we're asking somebody else. What are they thinking? Why did they do that? And yet we don't have the courage to ask, or even maybe the words to know how to ask it without it coming out sideways. Why did you say that? In a curious way. So being curious, that's part returning to our childlike self, because I never talk to people about becoming somebody else, because we talked about codependency and in all those different roles that we played. Was I the peacemaker? Was I the protector? Was I the caretaker? What role did I play? Did I learn to play so that I would be accepted? John, yeah, learned behavior can be so hard to change in reflexive action to early life environment. Absolutely. Yeah. Robbie, we need to learn to intervene on ourselves, kind of. Yes, they call it, and there's a program called, because I've gone to the programs, and so there's a program called Adult Children of Alcoholics, but it's for people who come from dysfunctional families too. And they have a phrase in there they call gentle parenting, because our parents, they did the best they could with what they knew. I did the best I could with what I knew. So we do the best we can with what we know. But those parents aren't going to come back and acknowledge what they did, because they didn't know. We just don't know what we don't know until we know. I know y'all know. Yes. And so I have to catch myself when I start thinking twisted thoughts are automatic, that's patterned in me. Because it takes a long time. It's always like they say in peeling the onion. Exactly. I'm realizing how important self-reflection is, observing and questioning why we do what we do. Yeah, why we do what we do, not why they're acting off, why we do what we do. Because that's where healing is, and that's where our empowerment is. So we're not going to get empowerment by figuring somebody else out. And I know I tried for a long time, because that was a learned behavior for me. And even now, sometimes I'll have to stop myself. I'll be like, I did that today, because my daughter sometimes likes me and sometimes she doesn't. And so I already started this morning. I had to catch myself, because it's like it's Mother's Day is this weekend. And I'm like sitting here thinking, did she call me last Mother's Day? Is she going to call me on Mother's Day? And it's like, Stacy, what the? It don't matter. It's not Mother's Day yet. Calm down. Calm yourself down, because I'm human. We're all human here. And that's the message I try to send. There is no perfection. Mm-mm. No, we're all learning all the time. Robbie, wise men learn about others' mistakes. I know that's what I try to present on here. So I'm hoping that what I share with my craziness, that somebody gets to learn not to do what I've done. Thank you, John London. I appreciate that. Yes. Yep. Sometimes she might say Happy Mother's Day. She might not, because in her mind she thinks, she has said before, it's Mother's Day. Every day is like Mother's Day. Blah 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 blah. It's not special to her. And I get it. When I was a little girl and we had Mother's Day, I would think, how come we don't have Daughter's Day? And now we do have Daughter's Day. I missed the bus. So it's recognizing when the inner child is feeling shame, fear, abandonment, or not enough. How many of us feel like not enough? And that's what sometimes we're trying to prove, that we are enough or are not enough. It sounds crazy that we will try to prove that we are not enough. But see, that's what's familiar. And that's our thinking pattern. When she becomes a mother, I don't think she's going to come and become a mother, Kim. She's told me before, Mom, I don't know if you're going to be a grandma. And I'm like, okay. And I'm really okay with if she doesn't want to be a grandma. I can totally understand with the world the way it is these days. My dad used to say, even back when I was younger, he'd say, I don't know if I would have children today. And so things do change and they evolve. And if she has children, that's fine. If she doesn't have children, that's fine. I respect that. It would be nice, though, for her to get to understand that, what we do as moms, because, one of my best friends, she says, I'll get back on the point, y'all. This is why I have notes. But one of my best friends says, Stacy, I'm so glad that well, my best friend, she says, I'm so glad that I got you because she says, we think our moms are just our moms. That's just the way that it is. You know, our moms are just our moms, and that's their role in life. But we don't realize that she said, knowing you, I know that mom has a life. Mom has a life. They don't think of that we have a separate life than theirs. And she's like, you know, and I get to respect that out of my mother now, that she has a life too, that she is a different being. She has other roles. She has her own desires. But a lot of times people get caught up in my mom's just my mom and sometimes we play, you know. And so yeah, so I don't know what my daughter thinks, but and I can't. I had to calm myself, you know, bring myself back, like Robbie was saying. I had to parent myself, you know, is like say, Stacy, it's not even Mother's Day yet. What the hell? You know, why are you trying to prepare yourself? But you know, it's that craziness of when we're trying to prove something and we don't even realize that's what we're doing, you know, is Luke. Hello. It's good to see you today. Kim is actually moderating today. How are you today? Everybody gets a day. My mom is a miracle. Thank you, Luke. That's good. You sound like you're sweet to your mom. Kevin Don. Let me tell you, we got a few guidelines up in here. We don't talk about religion. We don't talk about politics. I'm not, you know, spirituality is fine, but we don't talk. We respect people's religion. We respect people's politics. So we don't talk about those things. And we don't talk about my age. We respect me. Okay? Okay. So many of us spent years gathering evidence to support painful beliefs such as I'm too much. I'm not enough. This is just like I was just talking about. I will be rejected. I'm unsafe. And my needs don't matter. See, a lot of people don't consider themselves. They weren't taught to consider themselves. That's the thing. And so it's hard to learn how to consider yourself. Well, thank you, Kevin Don. I appreciate that. I just don't know why people talk about age on here, Kevin Don. That's all. Rodolfo, I am in Mexico. I'm near Cancun, Mexico. Howdy, Luke. How are you this evening? Tiny Tim Johnson. Well, thank you. Thank you, Kevin Don. Yes. So we're talking about healing on here, healing from childhood trauma and emotional maturity. A lot of us, because we get in these grown bodies, we feel like we're mature, but if we haven't healed to childhood trauma, it doesn't just go away. We want to think because we get grown and things that it goes away. And like, you know, was said earlier by Kim, just wait till you have your own kids. And when we find we have our own kids, that really activates. We can forget about some of our childhood traumas and intellectualize stuff. But when we have our own kids and we start trying to heal our kids' wounds from our wounds, right? And they don't have our wounds. So this is why a lot of kids get mad at us. Thank you. Thank you, Robbie. And John London, I like to say you look beautiful instead of you look young. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Very good. So when healing is that we begin interrupting those patterns, breaking the cycles and interrupting the patterns. Hi, Sadi Boobcare. Okay, so healing is questioning old evidence. You know, we gather evidence, data on a daily basis, and it's like our cell phones. We have so much stuff in our mind. This childhood trauma doesn't just go away. It's like hidden like your cell phone stuff. You got pictures in your cell phone that are there from years and years and years ago. I need to clean my pictures out. I have phone numbers in there, numbers I haven't called in forever. Okay. Rodolfo, you have such a sweet face. Okay. Well, thank you, Rodolfo. Tiny Tim, you're a broken man. Well, what if we're not broken, but just bent? Kevin Don, how do you heal from trauma bonded, highly codependent 3-year live in relationship at 19 to 21? I'm 24 today. Is it your birthday today, Kevin Don? Happy birthday if that's your birthday today. Hey, Tensink, how do you heal? So there's a book I was talking about earlier called Codependent No More, because it's about realizing the patterns that we learned in childhood. Because codependency is a learned behavior. And so I also worked the Codependence Guide to the 12 Steps. I went to a CODA group. My therapist was very insistent that I go to CODA because I was so numb and shut down. I don't know if you're getting numb and shut down, but I was so numb and shut down that when she asked me, Stacy, what are you thinking? I'd be like, I don't know. She'd say, well, how do you feel? And I'd be like, I don't know. Because for so long, as I shut down, I played small. And so people would tell me what I thought. They'd tell me what I felt. Sometimes they'd say, what did it, and then I'd start to answer, and then they'd interrupt and tell me so it was like I shut down, right? That doesn't just go away. If that was the case too when you were a child, Robbie, all I got to say is, then as your dress looks lovely. Well, thank you. Thank you, John London. I like that, coming off rock bottom, bent, not broken. Gives hope for all. Exactly. And I tell people, is that we can repair ourselves. Broken, I think, is like we can repair ourselves. Like that, was it the Japanese dish that has the gold filigree, in it, putting it back together. And sometimes being broken open helps us to let all the yucky stuff out so the good stuff can come in. That healing, the soul, like the tears water the soul so that you can grow. Because sometimes when we're feeling limited, that's what it is it's just a call for growth. That's what I've learned. Tenzek, how do you maintain so fit? Is it physical, mental, or spiritual? It's all of the above, Tenzek. Because oftentimes when I'm doing, I don't like work out a ton. All I do is toning. And so I do the toning, and I'm mindful every day, because when you get to this age, if you don't move it, you lose it. But it's spiritual too, because I know that I want to be spiritually, mentally, and emotionally fit. Jesus is truth. Hello, John London. Absolutely. Rumi once said, the wound is where the light enters you. Exactly. And I've been listening to this Rumi music. That's so funny you mentioned that, because there's this music that's really beautiful, and he sings Rumi poems. He's on YouTube here. I'll have to get his name next time, look through my playlist or comment in one of my videos of who it is. But I really like that music, the poems, that he says. Rodolfo, what was your natural hair color? My natural hair color was something like a dirty strawberry blonde. John London. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I will try to figure that out, how to share it on my community page. Jean Menison. I talk about different things, but it's all about healing. So I don't know, what you want to hear, but a lot of people talk about different things on their channel, and that's what this channel does, is that we are talking about healing. We're talking about childhood trauma, emotional maturity. Thank you. It is a pretty song. Ahmad Tariq. Hello. All right. Jean Menison, I know about codependency, and so a lot of people don't know what it is, and I hope that, if you could learn something about it, maybe, and if not, you don't have to be here. All right? All right. So healing is questioning old evidence. Healing is learning that our past experiences may explain our patterns, but they do not have to dictate your future choices. So we're feeling stuck. That's what it is. Ahmad. I don't ask people to pray. I pray myself, and I tell people that I pray. I tell people I breathe, pray, and say, I don't know, but we respect religions and people's belief systems here. So thank you, though. Tonight, we will explore how the inner child protects pain through defense, shame, withdrawal, control, or emotional immaturity, and how emotional maturity helps us to grow into a greater freedom. No, I don't go to Mass still. Salman Shaikh. I'm good. How are you? So healing is not about becoming someone else. That's not what we're talking about. Healing is about remembering your authentic self, your essence of who you are before you got this programming. Oh, Jean, keep talking, darling. You will get put in time out. Hard to please. Do you think trolling is emotional maturity? I do not. I think sometimes that trolling, they might be 13 years old. That's what, because some people on here get upset. I don't really get so upset about the trolling. It's kind of funny in a way, but it's not if it interrupts the program and what I'm trying to talk about and the topic that we're talking about. And so sometimes I know it interrupts, people who are watching. So, but sometimes I wonder, are they like, remember when I was a kid, there was these prank callers. Sometimes kids would prank call and they're kind of like prank callers, right? Hard to please. That's what it reminds me of. John London. This is a great series on the big topic of codependency. I hope you write a book one day, if not already. I am working on a book right now, John London, and I'm working on how to do all this technical stuff because the programs that I do, the workshops that I do, I want to sell into modules, where I can sell the workshop and then just sell the modules. So I'm working on these things. I'm not real technically well here. So, all right, hard to please. No, we were talking about this person who was complaining about what I talk about on here. And so I told him he would go to timeout if he had problems with it. He said, people only watch me because the way that I look. That wasn't very nice, was it? And maybe that's true, but I'm trying to stay on topic. I do not teach black magic. I don't even know about black magic. Hard to please. I'm hoping to become monetized as a troll. Really? I don't know that. Do you become monetized as a troll? Yes, Jaw 5014. I do read books. I read a lot of books. Look, I have these books sitting on my desk that I always come back to refer to. What Happened to You is one that I've been referring to this week and kind of goes with our topic this evening because this is a book written by Oprah and Bruce D. Perry, who's a doctor. And he said that if instead of going to the doctor and when they ask what's wrong with you, because some of us are carrying around these symptoms as some of the pain of what's wrong with us. If they asked instead what happened to you, because a lot of our outside symptoms are from inner pain. So, uh, anyway, healing. Ramon cut what out? Cut the people out, or bye, Salmon. So healing is remembering who you are underneath the defenses, the fear, the addiction, and the survival patterns. A lot of people don't realize they have. Thank you, Kim. My Instagram is Stacy_Renee for life. Thank you, Kim. You are the best. Hard to please. Oh my goodness. I know. I know, John London. I'm not even going to respond to these off topics anymore. I know, Ramon, I'm not going to even respond to them anymore. So, Ahmad, people heal themselves. I just kind of talk to people and ask the questions so they can start the healing process. But it's a co healing thing. Jim Smith. Okay, Roger. Oh, well, that's nice, Roger. Thank you. I'm glad they recommended it. Thank you. So freedom comes when we no longer need our old protections so that we feel safe. That's what it is. I've been clean and sober for almost 29 years. Ahmad. Ahmad, I'm on topic right now. If you want private coaching sessions, you can look in the description and my email address is in there, okay? I have not read Nathan the Wise. I'll write it down though and look it up, okay? Robbie, we pray we don't talk religion, age, or nonsense on here, guys. Let's show gratefulness. Thank you. Or you'll get time out. Thank you, Robbie. Nathan the Wise. Let me see. All right. No, no. Thank you, Kim. So healing is remembering who you are underneath the defenses, the fear, the addiction, and the survival patterns. And freedom comes when we no longer need our old protections to feel safe. So there we grow. There we grow. I'm going to go over that ACE test, that ACE thing once again. Where did I put it? Where did I put it? Hold on, y'all. I have it here. Hold on. So if you didn't see these questions, it's the Adverse Childhood Experience Questionnaire. And if you haven't heard these questions, did it changed your way of thinking? I will check it out because I get to learn a lot on here too, Joss. So thank you. So on this Adult Childhood Experience Questionnaire, the first question is did you feel like you didn't have enough to eat, had to wear dirty clothes, or had no one to protect you or take care of you? See, sometimes we will be the ones doing that if we felt that way. I know for me that was the case. When we feel like that, we might be the ones that are doing that, making sure other people have that. And they may not even appreciate it, y'all. So, did you lose a parent through divorce, abandonment, death, or another reason? That's question number 2. 3, did you live with anyone who was depressed, mentally ill, or attempted to unlife themselves? 4, did you live with anyone who had a problem with drinking, using drugs, including prescription drugs? 5, did your parents or adults in your home ever hit, punch, beat, or threaten to harm each other? 6, did you live with anyone who went to jail or prison? 7, did a parent or adult in your home swear at you, insult you, or put you down? 8, did a parent or adult in your home ever hit, beat, kick, or physically hurt you in any way? And 9, did you feel like no one in your family loved you or thought you were special? I know, Rob, because it's what our mind knows. What we project is what our mind knows. This is why it's so important to be humble and teachable. Jason. Yes, Jason, exactly. Yeah, because like some of the stuff I talked about don't even come up. Like codependency, nobody talked about codependency until like the 70s and 80s, really. You didn't hear about that. John London said yes to a lot of these. I know, right? I know. So the last one is did you ever experience, a violation of boundaries and these kind of things I can't say on here. So there's that too. So if we experience those things, our bodies learn to adapt to these things. And that means we probably have shallow breathing. We probably run on high alert, high alert, high alert because we're trying to protect ourselves. And that is, that is your defense mechanism. And that's your central nervous system, the autonomic response system is your automatic response system. So it's just like when you have to go to the bathroom, so that you don't even think about it. You just get up and go, right? Well, when you get triggered, if you're running in defense mode, then when you get triggered, then you automatically respond or react, usually automatically react like a knee-jerk reaction if we're trying to defend ourselves. So, yeah, that's what the ACE test is. And exactly, they did it in the 70s and 80s because it became more aware that these problems were happening. Let me get something else up here. Let me go back. So I'm going to talk about, I already had that up there. Okay. I'm going to talk about the roles that we played from Wednesday night. Just go over that right quick. Is that okay? If it was, or Wednesday morning. So let me look at these roles in case somebody wasn't here. Thank you, Ethan. Let me go back to Wednesday. All right, here's some of the roles, okay? We talked about how Wednesday, if you didn't get to see that and you want to see the whole thing, it's how childhood trauma shows up in adult relationships with anxiety and people pleasing was what we talked about. So it said, ask yourself, the survival skill you're still using today, did you become the peacemaker? So this kind of defines for you what role you learn to play. And we may still be playing this role in adulthood, and it may be old and worn out, and we think that this always happens. And so, did we become the peacemaker? Learning to avoid conflict. Oh, well, I'm glad you came. You're here still, me 4084. So did we become the peacemaker? You know, you learn to avoid conflict and stay safe. We may play more than one of these roles, y'all. We can switch. So when we get tired of being one role, we may switch to another role. So those adult patterns for being the peacemaker may be fear of confrontation, over apologizing, and suppressing needs. I'm glad you're here, Ethan. Thank you. All right. So the adult patterns in this, if you were the peacemaker, is that fear of confrontation, over apologizing and suppressing your needs, and keeping the peace at your own expense. This is you not even considering yourself. You just feeling like you have to keep the peace. That's what your central nervous system is saying. It's like, I'm afraid of conflict. I'm afraid of confrontation. It's just easier to keep the peace. Was it, John? Yeah, I've been there too. So the other one, the next one, is the perfectionist. The perfectionist is we learned mistakes were unsafe. We got in trouble. A lot of people still walking around on eggshells with, adults in their life, thinking they're going to get in trouble, and so we may try to be perfect so we don't get in trouble. I did not get to meet John Bradshaw, Ethan. It's from all kinds. It's really, I specialize in addiction recovery, codependency, and grief, because they're all kind of interrelated, and everyone's going to experience at least one of those things in their lifetime, whether it's them or someone else. John London, and it's particularly difficult when both have had traumatic childhoods. It is. And the thing is that whether it works or doesn't work, it's a catalyst for our growth. And that's what I try to promote on here, is that we don't want to be victims anymore. We might have been victims in our childhood. A lot of people were. But as to empower ourselves, it's about forgiving ourselves for the power that being a victim in the childhood was. We don't want to keep being victims. And we don't want to portray people as villains, because maybe a lot of people who are bullies were victims. And that's why they're bullies now, because they definitely run on the false esteem and all of this. So it's not about judging one or the other. It's about discerning where we want to be and what makes us feel good, and considering ourselves, because we are meant to live life. We're meant to live life fully, totally, and splendidly. We are. We're not meant to be afraid, but we are meant to be afraid if we are afraid, because it's all a catalyst for our healing, you see. So it's about not judging these things, not judging ourselves and not judging somebody else. Just maybe we have to go no contact with some people because they're committed to disrespecting. They're committed to misunderstanding you. They don't want to understand you. Yes. John Bender, we would have a counselor come in for the gym class, talk about issues of drugs, alcohol in the 1980s and 81. That's right. Was that Reagan years? I can't remember what years are years, but yeah. And I know we don't talk about politics, but I remember saying no to drugs. That's what I'm talking about. Some of us aren't strong enough to stop being the victim. I think you are. I'm not denying your reality. It's a choice that we choose to heal. See, we will be a victim until we heal, because you were born worthy, and you were born valuable, and you were born divine. And so sometimes there's been things happen to you that you could not, as children, we can't leave. We can't leave. We can't go no contact as children. And so we start making up stories so that we can handle it, so that we can stay. But the problem is, as adults, we don't quit making up those stories. You see, we learn to play these roles so that life will go easy, supposedly, but it doesn't, does it? Because, like John London was saying, we end up in a relationship with somebody who comes from, and our wounds buck up against each other. At least that's my experience. I hope that the end's not nigh for you. I will pray for you. 101 Sonnet, Robbie. And Stacy, like some of us have lived what she talks about, so listen up and learn. Thank you, Robbie. John London. That's an eye-opening way to look at the world. I know. In recovery, they used to say, they still say, I'm sure, victims stay victims. And so, a lot of us have been victims. Do we want to stay a victim? It didn't feel good for me to be a victim. And I know that I was, but to heal those pains so that I can live my life fully, totally, and completely, because I don't like walking around in fear. I don't. And now I live over here in Mexico. I have people all the time, in America, they have people afraid of Mexico, and people will be saying, will you be safe down there? And I'm like, I feel like fine down here, From a faith aspect, I've learned that trust in God helps you overcome childhood trauma, but I'm open to subjective truth. Well, trust helps. Belief, faith, and trust helps, in a higher power. It does. Rare hope. The lady is Judith Light. I remember Judith Light. Beloved, I'm not divine. Immortal beloved, you're not divine? Okay. You're not what you say you're not. So if you say you're not, you're not. See, that's what I talk about, this self-esteem alphabet is I am. Because we are what we say we are. And, no matter what your belief system is, if it was Jesus, Jesus just kept saying, I am. He wasn't defensive about anything, because he knew that people were committed to, making fun of him and committed to misunderstanding him. And people don't like what they don't understand. So sometimes you just got to go no contact with those people. Back to the notes, y'all. But the barriers in the head break sometimes, and it all goes downhill in a spiral. Sometimes we have to go to a doctor, a medical professional, for things in the mind. It could just be a chemical imbalance. And, there's medicines to help with that. And sometimes it's just that 101 Senate, it's sometimes that we just need to change our mind. I had to learn to change my mind. And that's what I try to do on here. But sometimes people do need medical help, sometimes. Judith Light is like 35 years older. I know, right? Younger sister. Okay, y'all. I agree. Attracting people who trigger core wounds as catalysts make us grow through what we go through. Exactly. I love the way you put that, John London. Let me pin it. Pin it. All right. Jason Bender. But I remember the teachers in the 80s used to push, I'm doing. Yeah, I was getting out of school in the 80s, so I don't, yeah. Robbie, a lot of us were addicted, but we don't have to be. It's our choice. Exactly. We think that we have to be, but we don't. Rodolfo, my BF is way weaker than me. I'll never be the victim again. Good. Good. Hey, Colin Maharaj, I'm glad that you're here. If you like this content, please consider subscribing. If any of you here like this content, please consider subscribing. So thank you for feeding this kind of algorithm that is more about healing nature. We can go down the catastrophizing rabbit hole, or we can come here and meet together and support each other, and ask questions and share experiences so that we're not alone. That's why we come here, because we're not alone. Sometimes in this world we can feel all alone. A lot of wisdom from Jesus, absolutely. Colin, I'm 56 and haven't visited a mental care provider in all my life. Wow, that's good. I guess things are going pretty well, because when the pain gets great, I know I went. I went when I didn't know what else to do. All right. If y'all are like not being nice to each other, don't not be nice to each other, because we're here to lift each other up. 101 Senate, may God bless you, and you're a good and pure soul. Thank you, Senate, and God bless you too. You're a good and pure soul also. So I appreciate that. All right, Colin. You live in the Caribbean island of Trinidad. I live in the Caribbean too, but not in an island. I live near Cancun. Ray. Oh my gosh. Ethan. From a faith aspect, I've been learning and still learning that trusting God is important. Over time, through this strength, you grow spiritually, mentally. And I believe that's the truth, Ethan. I know that I have. I've deepened every time I've had to, go looking at something that I felt challenged with, and I did trust God, my relationship with God got better. But also, not only did my relationship with my source get better, my relationship with people got better too, because I learned to see people with different eyes. Creamy Feb. I don't know what that is, but we don't talk about religion here. Mm-mm. We can talk about spirituality. We can talk about God, but we respect everybody's beliefs. Okay. So the perfectionist. You learned mistakes were unsafe. So the adult patterns of being a perfectionist are overthinking, high anxiety, fear of failure, people pleasing through achievement, harsh inner critic. You may believe your worth is tied to performance. I know that I work with people right now. Some of them have lost their jobs. And so they don't know themselves right now. It's like scary for them because, Stacy, you kind of let me down here in Mexico. Okay. Well, thankfully I'm not a people pleaser. So, but yeah, I'm glad yeah, Mexico's a good place. It's very nice. It's muy tranquilo here. So, yeah, Montreal is up 3-1 on Buffalo. Okay, I don't care about that. I'm not a sports fan. If I had to guess, your profession based on, I'd say, I'm not in the UK. I'm definitely Texan over here. Mexico, yes. Oh my God, that sounds a lot like you. Was you related with was it the peacemaker, the perfectionist, Robbie? Okay, well, I'm going to the UK. I'm going to be European. I'm going to be European. All right. So the perfectionist, that was the last one. The rebel. I was a little bit of the perfectionist, but I was the rebel because I tried to be good for so long, and when being good didn't work, then I decided I'd be bad so I could get attention. Yeah. Okay. Yes, you can hear the accent. Let me know when you're in Dublin. Okay. I got to get to Europe, and I plan on doing a lot of traveling once I get to Europe. So the rebel. Oh, okay. Good, Ethan. Thank you. So the rebel, if you relate to this, is that you learned control felt suffocating or unsafe. So the adult patterns of that when we are the rebel is authority issues, pushing people away, impulsivity, resistance to vulnerability, and self-sabotage when life gets stable. See, sometimes we're addicted to chaos, so chaos may feel more familiar than consistency. John London, me too, through Europe. Yes, yes, indeed. You, you're in there already, right? I'm going to go to Italy. I'm going to go to Greece. I'm going to go so many places. I'm going to go to Spain first, though. That's where my best friend is. The caretaker. The caretaker. So you learn to monitor others and meet their needs. So this is the person who's just always anticipating, what do they need? What do they need? Yes, Robbie's down under in Australia. So the adult patterns of the caretaker are codependency, rescuing, emotional exhaustion, hyper awareness of others' moods, neglecting your own needs, and you may feel responsible for everyone. You may also be apologetic. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, because there's no way you can meet everybody's needs. Ethan, I do make my own thumbnails. Italy is so beautiful. I wish UK was part of the EU still. I know, right? I'll be going to England too, and I'm going to go to London to the vintage stores to buy secondhand stuff. My bestie and I have already said that. I'm going to go to Germany and buy myself a cuckoo clock. I'm going to go to Morocco and get some rugs and incense. I got plans. So the caretaker is who we just talked about. Okay, now we're on the achiever. Yes. I can't wait to go to Italy, though. Italy's my favorite. That was my bucket list one. That's my bucket list. So the achiever, you learned success brought safety, approval, and attention. So a lot of people are really high achievers. Caretaker here, right? Right? Yes. I have a lot of people in your field that are caretakers. Yes, John London, you're going to have the time of your life. I am going to have the time of my life. Y'all come on when I get there. I'm hoping I can get to Spain by this time next year. Robbie, what about coming to Australia? I don't know. Australia's hard to get in and out of, isn't it, Robbie? I think it's hard to get in and out of Australia. Yeah, I know, Rodolfo. Some of these people, Kim's got them, though. She's got them. Why, thank you, JF. So the achiever. Oh, here we grow, y'all. The achiever. You learned success brought safety, approval, or attention. So the adult patterns of the achiever are, it's not for most people. I'm not going to say. Okay, adult patterns is work addiction, burnout, overfunctioning, inability to rest, an identity tied to accomplishment. A lot of us were that, right? You may fear slowing down because rest feels unsafe. It wasn't bad what I was going to say, Robbie. It's just I have to tell you in a like a comment or something. Australia, I hear, is very beautiful, and I love the accents down there. So the invisible one, you learned that disappearing kept you safe. This is like when people are playing small, building others up while they're shrinking. Adult patterns are fear of visibility. You might have been bullied too. I know that, a lot of us are afraid of being seen when we've been bullied. Difficulty speaking up. Well, thank you, YPRIM. Minimizing yourself, social anxiety, tolerating being overlooked. You may be working your butt off and tolerating being overlooked and just hoping someday somebody will recognize you. You may have learned that taking up space was risky. Let me look at the comments. All right. Let me look at the real comments here. Oh, no, you're crazy cool. Do you think it's possible to get avoidant personality disorder? What do you mean, Rodolfo? Like, yes, but it can span in different ways. There's under earners anonymous. There's all kinds of things, that maybe could be considered avoidant personality. There's also avoidance in relationships. There's the avoidant, and then there's also the attached ones. So, with attachment and avoidant, anxious attachment and avoidant. And usually they attract because one has to learn to be more open and the other one has to learn to be less anxious. I have worked with a lot of the anxious ones, and I'm happy to say that with the anxious attachment people is that no avoidants usually come to me saying I'm avoidant and I want to be less avoidant. But the anxious ones, they really want help. And so I'm happy to say that I know I have at least two, I think three of my people that I've gotten to work with. They are now in relationships where they're happy and they're not like freaking out about the person calling them, or if they're good enough for the person, they're not freaking out. And I love that. So the avoidants usually don't ask me to work with them. They don't, not as much. I don't know who Felix from the Stray Kids are. So we talked about the invisible one. Okay, here we go. I know somebody up in here, the comedian, a few people, the comedians. You learned humor could diffuse pain or tension. The adult patterns are deflecting vulnerability with humor, discomfort with seriousness, avoid and deeper emotional expression. You may know how to make others comfortable while feeling unseen yourself. Why, Pram, you're very welcome. I just stopped scrolling to say I hope you have a wonderful evening. Well, thank you very much, Why, Pram. Thank you, Ethan. So, here's the question that I asked on Wednesday. Does peace feel safe or uncomfortable? Because a lot of people are uncomfortable with peace. These are people who are addicted to chaos, typically, when you're feeling uncomfortable with peace. But you also have this inner dialogue, maybe, that whether, even if you just heard this dialogue, it imprinted like waiting for the other shoe to fall. When it rains, it pours. And, I'm hoping for the best, but expecting the worst. Anyway, so that's what we're looking at. I'm going to switch back here because we are about to do our breathing because I've gone over an hour. Thank you. Thank you very much, Kim. You're doing great. I appreciate you doing this for me. You are amazing. So we're about to do a guided meditation, but I'd like us to do a little bit of breathing first. Typical narcissists don't like peace. No, they do not like peace. Typical narcissists don't like peace. No, they don't. No, they do not. Thank you, Ethan. All right. So we're going to do this meditation. Are y'all ready for this? Escapism is something humans are kind of born with. We all naturally want to get away from something, right? As long as we're not getting away from ourselves, but this is the problem, is a lot of times we neglect ourselves. Thank you, Kim. All right. Thank you, Kim. All right, y'all, let's get ready to breathe. We are going to breathe, y'all. So we're going to take that deep breath in. Your shoulders will rise, your heart will open, your neck will be able to process the breath clearly down your neck. Anything you've been holding back this week, just let it go. Let it go. And then your brain, your mind, your divine mind is going to get some oxygen. And your brain loves oxygen. So do your cells love oxygen. So, yeah. All right. Yes. So we'll breathe in and hold it for 4 counts if you can. If not, just do your best and then just release gently and slowly. And we're going to do 5 of them. Well, we're going to do 3 this first time, and then we'll do 5 when we end this if you're still here, okay? So we're going to do 3. Yes, John, breathing in the love. I love that. And then I'll just kind of guide you through a little meditation, and y'all just keep breathing, okay? So let's do 3 and just keep breathing. All right? Here we go. Take a deep breath in. Hold it. And release. Breathe. Hold it. Release. Breathe in. Hold it. Release. Now you keep breathing, and I will lead you through this, okay? Yes, I totally understand, Ethan. So now that we've settled into our breath, I want you to simply remain here with yourself, okay? No fixing, no performing, no proving, just noticing. Allow your body to soften just a little bit more. Relax your jaw. Relax your shoulders. Keep breathing and unclench your hands. Notice the support beneath you. You're safe. You're safe right now. Thank you so much, Dries Sharif. I appreciate that. Notice that in this moment you are here. You are here, safe enough to observe, safe enough to listen, safe enough to be present with yourself. Notice that in this moment you're here. You're just here. Bring this awareness inward. Notice what's happening inside of you right now without judgment. What sensations do you feel in your body? Is there tightness, warmth, restlessness, heaviness, softness? Just observe how your body feels right now. You don't need to change anything. Let them come and go, your feelings, without attaching to them. You're not your thoughts. You're the observer of your thoughts. Notice what emotions may be present. Perhaps calm, perhaps discomfort, perhaps sadness, perhaps nothing at all. Whatever is here is welcome. Now gently bring to mind a younger version of yourself. The version of you that learned how to survive. The one who learned protection. The one who learned defense, withdrawal, people pleasing. Good, Ethan. Control, achievement, silence. Just see that version of yourself with compassion. No shame, no blame, simply awareness. Silently say to that younger part of yourself, thank you for helping me survive. Thank you for protecting me the best way you knew how. I'm here now. I'm learning new ways, and I no longer need to abandon myself to stay safe. Take one more slow breath in, and exhale gently. Silently remind yourself, I can observe without reacting. I can listen without defending. I can grow with humility. I can remember who I am beneath the survival. And when you're ready, gently bring yourself back into the room, back to this moment, back to yourself. John London, are you still here? I bet you're ready to go to sleep now if you are. John London's in the UK. It was 1 in the morning when he joined, so it's at least 2 in the morning now. I'm glad you were able to release the tightness in your chest. And I hope you're going to be able to get some blessed and regenerated rest now. I hope the rest of you will be able to get blessed and regenerated rest too. And I hope that this was very helpful for you tonight, that you related. And I appreciate you sharing, all you who participated, and letting me know how it did relate to you and everything. And I want to thank you all for being my Friday night date, and especially Kim for being my moderator. You're almost asleep now. Yes, good, good. I hope y'all will sleep well and have a great night. And I will see y'all Sunday at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time for story time. If you like this, I hope that you've subscribed to this. If you need one-on-one coaching, please feel free. The one-on-one coaching or a workshop or a program. I have an intensive 3-month program. And so you can see that anything, contact me from my email in the description. You are very welcome, darling. Thank you for all you do. I appreciate you. Love you, darling. beautiful friend. I can say this is the longest I've been on a person's YouTube live. Wow, that's such a compliment. Well, thank you, Ethan. I want to thank all of you. Thank you, Robbie. Yes, yes. And Robbie, you have an amazing day. Y'all know what? It's Saturday already for Robbie. So that is so cool that I get to experience that and experience y'all. And thank you, Kim, for all these hearts. Yes, Sunday. I'll be back here at 9 o'clock. I appreciate y'all so much. Thank you. Yes, it is a date. Yes, y'all are my Friday night. Yes. So that's really cool, huh? Okay. Y'all have a good night. Sleep well, and I look forward to seeing you next time. All right. Thanks. Thank you, Kim.